Throughout the late 1980s and early 1990s, Michelle Pfeiffer was regarded as one of the most beautiful women in the world. With her captivating blue eyes, a beauty that was both elegant and mysterious, an acting talent that was receiving increasing recognition, she became the face Hollywood longed to have. From Scarface to The Fabulous Baker Boys and then Batman Returns, Michelle was more than just a film star. She was the symbol of an entire era. On screen, she often portrayed strong, alluring, and self-possessed women. But in real life, her world was far more complicated than the flawless image the public saw. For many years, Michelle almost never spoke about the darker chapters of her private life. She stayed away from sensational interviews and rarely commented on the rumors that once surrounded her. As a result, some of the most important chapters of her life gradually became subjects of speculation among journalists and fans. One of the most frequently discussed stories involved her first marriage to actor Peter Horton. From the outside, they appeared to be Hollywood's ideal couple. But behind the happy photographs were quiet cracks that few people noticed. Then an unexpected relationship emerged while Michelle was at the height of her career. What began during the filming of a movie gradually became one of the most controversial chapters of her life. Eventually, not just one but two marriages would come to an end. As the years passed, Michelle did not try to justify her choices. On the contrary, she became increasingly candid when reflecting on the past. Those rare revelations were not intended to seek sympathy, but simply reflected her acceptance that even Hollywood icons sometimes make mistakes. To understand why those events happened, it is necessary to return to Michelle Pfeiffer's early years, when she was still a young woman full of ambition, trying to find her place in Hollywood's unforgiving film industry. Michelle Pfeiffer was born in 1958 in California into an ordinary middle-class family, far removed from the glamorous world she would later become part of. From an early age, Michelle was known for having a strong personality. She was not the type of student who always followed the rules and often caused her parents concern because of her independence and stubbornness. As a teenager, Michelle never dreamed of becoming a Hollywood star. She worked various part-time jobs and, like many young people, was still trying to figure out her future. Everything began to change when she entered a local beauty pageant and won. That title brought Michelle her first audition opportunities. However, those opportunities came with a problem. Producers often saw only her striking appearance and did not truly believe she possessed serious acting ability. To many people in Hollywood, Michelle Pfeiffer was simply another beautiful young woman trying to enter the entertainment industry. Determined to change that perception, Michelle began taking acting classes and devoted considerable time to developing her skills. But the road ahead was far from smooth. In 1982, she landed the lead role in Grease 2, the sequel to the famous musical film Grease. For a young actress, this should have been a golden opportunity. Instead, the film performed poorly both commercially and critically. The failure of Grease 2 almost froze Michelle's career before it had truly begun. Many people in the industry believed she would quickly disappear, like countless other young faces who had briefly appeared before quietly leaving Hollywood. But it was during this difficult period that Michelle began to demonstrate what made her different. Instead of giving up, she continued learning, auditioning, and persistently searching for new opportunities. Those years helped her develop her acting abilities and build the resilience that would later become one of her greatest strengths. That persistence was eventually rewarded when a project called Scarface came along. No one knew that the audition for that film would completely change Michelle Pfeiffer's life and bring her closer to a world even more dangerous than professional failure, a world of psychological manipulation that she almost failed to escape. In the early 1980s, Michelle Pfeiffer was still trying to move beyond the shadow of Grease 2. When she received the opportunity to audition for Scarface, she understood that it might be her last chance to prove herself to Hollywood. The audition was far from easy. Sitting before her was Al Pacino, one of America's most respected actors. Many other candidates had far more experience, but Michelle brought something the producers could not ignore: the coldness vulnerability, and unique magnetism of Elvira Hancock. When the film was released in 1983, Scarface quickly became a controversial yet highly influential work. And among the impressive cast, Michelle Pfeiffer unexpectedly became the most talked about name. After just one film, she went from a struggling young actress searching for opportunities to one of Hollywood's most promising new faces. But while her career was beginning to take off, Michelle's private life held a secret that few people knew about. When she first entered the entertainment industry, she and her flatmate became involved with an extremist-style group that promoted a so-called body-cleansing lifestyle. At first, the promises of health and enlightenment sounded harmless, but over time, the group gradually gained control over the lives of its members, influencing everything from eating habits to personal finances. Years later, Michelle admitted that she had been deeply influenced by these individuals without realizing it. They convinced her that she needed to depend on them in order to live a better life, while in reality, she was gradually losing control of her own. The person who helped her escape that situation was Peter Horton. As he got to know Michelle, Horton quickly recognized the warning signs and encouraged her to view things from a different perspective. It was through his support that Michelle came to understand she was being psychologically manipulated and gradually distanced herself from the group. The experience left a lasting mark on her life. It not only made Michelle more cautious of people who sought to control her, but also created a special bond between her and Peter Horton. Gratitude grew into trust, and trust eventually became love, allowing their relationship to develop very quickly. And before long, the man who had helped Michelle reclaim her life also became her first husband. In 1981, while still in her early 20s, Michelle Pfeiffer married Peter Horton. At the time, both were at the beginning of their careers and shared ambitious dreams of success in Hollywood. To Michelle, Peter was more than a partner. He was the man who had helped her escape a dangerous chapter of her life and regain confidence in herself. The early years of their marriage were relatively happy. Together, they navigated the challenges of the acting profession, watched each other's careers grow, and emerged as one of Hollywood's most admired couples. But success often brings its own challenges. As Michelle's fame continued to rise after Scarface and a series of major projects, her schedule became busier than ever. Peter was also pursuing his own career with his own ambitions and pressures. Gradually, the time they spent together became increasingly limited. There were no dramatic arguments or public scandals. Instead, a quiet distance slowly expanded over the years. They still cared for and respected each other, but the marriage gradually began to function more like a relationship between close colleagues than two people building a life together. Michelle later admitted that she devoted too much of her energy to work. Success arrived so quickly that she constantly felt compelled to keep moving forward, accept new roles, and conquer new challenges. In the process, some of the most important personal connections in her life were gradually left behind. From the outside, no one noticed those fractures. The public still saw a stable marriage and a flourishing career. But in reality, the foundation of the relationship was no longer as strong as it once had been. Then, towards the end of the 1980s, a new film project arrived. At first, it seemed like just another step in Michelle Pfeiffer's rising career. But on that film set, the line between acting and genuine emotion began to blur. And what followed not only changed Michelle's marriage, but also became one of the most controversial chapters of her life. In 1988, Michelle Pfeiffer joined Dangerous Liaisons, a film adaptation of the classic French novel featuring a cast that included Glenn Close, John Malkovich, and Keanu Reeves. It was an ambitious project that required the actors to portray intense, complex, and highly seductive emotions. During filming, Michelle and John Malkovich shared many intimate scenes. Both were deeply committed to their roles, but over time, the closeness on screen gradually extended beyond professional boundaries. Emotions that had initially existed only for the characters became increasingly difficult to separate from real life. What made the situation even more complicated was that both Michelle and John were married at the time. While Michelle was still trying to maintain her marriage to Peter Horton, John Malkovich also had a family life of his own. As a result, their relationship quickly became one of the most closely guarded secrets on set. But secrets in Hollywood rarely remain hidden forever. As news of the relationship gradually spread beyond the film set, pressure began mounting from every direction. It was not only the media, those directly involved also had to face the consequences of the choices they had made. Marriages that already contained cracks became even more fragile. By the end of 1988, Michelle Pfeiffer's marriage to Peter Horton had come to an end. John Malkovich's marriage was also unable to survive the turmoil. To the public, it appeared to be a typical Hollywood affair. But for those involved, the situation was far more complex and painful. Ironically, the relationship that contributed to the collapse of two marriages did not last very long. Once filming ended and each person returned to their own life, the intense emotions that had existed on set gradually faded away. What remained was largely regret, heartbreak, and a sense of loss. Years later, John Malkovich admitted that the period had left a significant psychological impact on him. Confronting the breakdown of relationships and the consequences that followed took him a long time to overcome. For Michelle, it was also one of the chapters she rarely discussed, but when looking back on the past, she no longer tried to deny or avoid it. After all, those mistakes had also become part of her journey towards maturity. And it was after that failed marriage that Michelle entered a different stage of her life, a journey of rediscovering herself and pursuing something she desired more than any role she could ever play: becoming a mother. Following her divorce from Peter Horton, Michelle Pfeiffer entered a period of significant change. On the surface, her career continued to flourish with critically acclaimed performances, but internally, she was trying to regain balance after a series of personal setbacks. During that time, Michelle was involved in a long-term relationship with actor Fisher Stevens. They cared deeply for one another, but they viewed life very differently. While Michelle increasingly longed for a stable home and a real family, Stevens still embraced the free-spirited lifestyle of an artist who was not ready for long-term commitments. That difference gradually became a distance between them. As she grew older, Michelle realized there was one desire that had never left her mind: becoming a mother. It was no longer a passing thought, but something she considered every single day. And after years of waiting for the perfect moment that never seemed to arrive, she decided to stop waiting. In 1993, Michelle made a bold decision for a single Hollywood star at that time. She began the adoption process for a baby girl and prepared to embrace motherhood on her own. It was not an easy choice. Friends and family understood that she was taking on a tremendous responsibility. But for the first time in many years, Michelle felt she was heading in the right direction. When little Claudia Rose entered her life, everything changed. The race for fame, Hollywood's praise and criticism, and complicated romantic relationships suddenly seemed far less important. Michelle later said that becoming a mother allowed her to see life from an entirely different perspective. What made the story even more remarkable was that at that very moment, fate brought another man into her life. He not only accepted Michelle's past, but was also willing to help her raise the child she had just adopted. And this time, Michelle's love story did not begin on a film set or beneath the lights of Hollywood, but through a simple meeting so ordinary that even she could never have imagined it would change the rest of her life. The man who entered her life during that special period was David E. Kelley, the talented screenwriter and television producer behind many successful American series. Their first meeting was nothing like a glamorous Hollywood romance. It was a setup arranged by friends. Michelle later recalled that their bowling outing was somewhat awkward and entirely unremarkable. There was no instant spark, no cinematic moment worthy of the silver screen. Yet it was precisely that natural simplicity that made them feel comfortable together. What caught Michelle's attention was not David's fame or success, but his calm and dependable character. After years of navigating the turbulence of Hollywood, that was something she valued more than anything else. The relationship developed quickly, and there was one detail that Michelle has always spoken about with gratitude. When they began dating, she was in the process of raising her adopted daughter, Claudia Rose. David never viewed that as an obstacle. On the contrary, he willingly became involved in the lives of both mother and daughter from the very beginning. That bond helped Michelle realize she had found the right person. Just a few months later, at the end of 1993, they were married. Not long afterwards, their growing family welcomed a son, John Henry. Unlike her first marriage, Michelle and David built their relationship on very clear principles. One of the most important rules was that they would not work together. They wanted to keep a firm boundary between work and family life so that the pressures of Hollywood would not enter their home. That seemingly simple rule became the foundation of one of Hollywood's most enduring marriages. While many celebrity couples repeatedly separated and reunited, Michelle and David quietly built a private life together, far removed from unnecessary attention. Over time, Michelle began reducing her workload in order to spend more time with her family. To many people, it seemed like a puzzling decision when she was still at the height of her fame. But for Michelle, for the first time in her life, the peace of family mattered more than the spotlight. That choice led her into a new chapter of life, one that was slower, quieter, and happier than any period that had come before. For many years, Michelle Pfeiffer surprised fans by appearing less frequently on screen. While many stars of her generation continued relentlessly pursuing new projects, she chose to devote most of her time to her family and children. It was not a retreat caused by a lack of opportunities. On the contrary, Michelle deliberately chose to slow down. She admitted that her years with her children were a period she did not want to miss, because careers can wait, but childhood cannot. But like many other chapters of her life, Michelle did not disappear forever. As her children grew older, she gradually returned to film and television. What made this comeback notable was that it no longer carried the pressure of proving herself as a leading star. She returned with the confidence of someone who had experienced enough success and failure to understand what truly matters. By 2026, Michelle continues to take part in major projects and enjoys a special level of respect from both audiences and industry professionals. She is involved in The Madison and also appears in Margot's Got Money Troubles, a project that marks a notable collaboration with her husband, David E. Kelley, after many years of maintaining their rule of keeping work and family separate. At nearly 68 years old, Michelle is no longer the ambitious young woman who once struggled to prove she belonged in Hollywood. Today, she is a respected veteran artist recognized for her talent, resilience, and ability to rise after her own mistakes. What many people admire is not only a beauty that seems to defy time, but also the sense of calm she has gained through decades of ups and downs. Michelle no longer runs from her past, nor does she try to turn it into a perfect story. Because in the end, what has allowed her to endure for so long is not the beauty that once captivated all of Hollywood, but her ability to learn from poor choices and continue moving forward with greater wisdom. That is perhaps why, after all the challenges she has faced, Michelle Pfeiffer remains one of Hollywood's most beloved icons. Not because she is perfect, but because she has lived long enough to confront her own imperfections. What do you think changed Michelle Pfeiffer's life the most? The success of Scarface, her marriage to David E. Kelley, or the mistakes that took her years to learn to accept? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy emotional behind-the-scenes stories about Hollywood legends, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss future videos. Thank you for watching.